What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG, youtube.com down there. Magic is fun. Case in point today. Today, we get to play a 2-card combo that can win the game and has nothing to do with cats. Here's Blue-Black Secret Alignment. The combo's so nice, I had to do it twice. It's a budget double deck tech today. That's right, both decks are budget. Usually I do budget competitive, but in this case, there's just a lot of fun, cheap stuff you can do with this deck. So I'm going to show you an alignment control deck that just cost about 35 bucks, and then I'm going to show you a $50 zombie deck. That sounds like fun. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, the very first thing I should do if I'm going to cover this deck is tell you exactly what this combo is, just in case you somehow haven't seen this yet, and it's like a little refresher course for people who forgot the combo existed. So let me show you these two cards real quick. Hedron Alignment wants you to have 4 different copies of it in different zones, and then during your next upkeep, you win the game. That's pretty cool. And then Secret Salvage conveniently allows you to take a copy of Alignment that's in your graveyard, put it into exile, and then go get the other 3 from your deck and put them in your hand. These two cards look as though they were designed to go together. You know, Hedron Alignment didn't really have a good companion piece. You just kind of had to sweat it out and hope that you were able to get the cards in different zones. But Secret Salvage is made to do it. As long as you can get 1 copy of Alignment into your graveyard, just exile it, go get the other 3. And by the way, this will also work if you have 2 copies of Alignment in your graveyard. Then you're just ahead of the curve. But you don't want to have 3 copies of Alignment in your graveyard, because then you're more or less screwed. Now in the control deck, I'm going to play 4 of both combo pieces, because of course we got to play all 4 Hedron Alignment if we're going to win, so we're pretty much locked into that. But I'm also going to play 4 Secret Salvage, and I feel like we could get away with not playing 4, but in this deck we live and die by this combo. We've only got one other win condition besides this combo, so we've got to assemble it as consistently as possible. I'll play all 4 Salvage. And Hedron Alignment may just take up 4 slots in your deck that feel like slightly dead. You know, that kind of sucks. But at least it makes up for it a little bit by having that scry ability, which is actually kind of really important for a control deck. You know, scry up like counter spells or removal or whatever we're trying to get to control the board, or we can scry up combo pieces or like card draw and stuff. Don't underestimate the scries, all I'm saying, because end of turn scries tend to be pretty good. Now, one of the most important parts of our mission in this deck is getting 2 copies of Alignment into the graveyard over the course of the game. You know, 1 for Secret Salvage, and then 1 to fulfill the win condition. It's pretty important. So with that in mind, we're going to play a bunch of different pieces that not only draw us cards, but can also help us get cards into the graveyard. Now, one of the best pieces to accomplish this in the deck is the 3 of Pieces of the Puzzle. Pieces of the Puzzle not only lets us drop Hedron Alignment into our graveyard, but it also gets Secret Salvages and puts them in our hand. That's just great. That's everything that we need to happen, you know? And it gives us card advantage, too, in the form of, like, counter spells or removal spells that we can put into our hand, too. So, lots of cool stuff, man, about Pieces of the Puzzle. It does everything the deck wants to be able to do. Drop alignments, put Secret Salvage in our hand, and give us card advantage. I'm also going to play 2 Catalog. Haven't seen that in a while. And then 2 Nagging Thoughts in the deck. Now, we're discarding a fair amount of cards, so I wanted something with Madness, just a couple of pieces, to help, you know, keep going and getting more cards, and we get the chance at putting another alignment into our graveyard. But at some point, you gotta watch out. You know, if you've already got 1 alignment in the graveyard, or especially if you've already got 2 alignments in the graveyard, pump your brakes on stuff like Nagging Thoughts, because you really don't want to accidentally put that 3rd alignment in the graveyard and more or less have to scoop. Now, Catalog doesn't see a whole heck of a lot of play, but it does a lot of things we want it to do. You know, it's instant speed. It draws 2 cards, which is great. Digging for pieces is what we want to do, and we want to discard a card so that we can get an alignment into the graveyard. So I'll play a couple of copies of Catalog, which I haven't done since like Urza's Saga, but we'll do it. I'll also play 3 copies of Baral, Chief of Compliance, in the deck. Weird maybe to see him here, but he does so much. You know, he allows us to play all of our like counter spells, some of our removal, and like all of the cards I've shown you so far that draw us stuff. He allows us to play those for a whole mana cheaper, which can be super important. He helps us discard alignments into the graveyard. He allows us to dig for combo pieces when we counter spells, and we're playing some counters. So just like Baral kind of does everything. I'm also going to play 3 copies of Sinister Concoction in the deck, because we need removal, we need cheap ways of putting things into the graveyard, you know. So this does a lot of things the deck wants to do as well, but just like Nagging Thoughts, it's one of those things you have to be careful with, because sure, you can discard an alignment from your hand, but you never know. There's a statistical probability that at some point you will also mill another alignment into your graveyard. Now, if you're looking for 2 alignments in the graveyard, that's fantastic, but if you've already got 1 in the graveyard, you are dead. So all I'm saying is that yes, this is very cheap removal, and yes, it enables the combo, but be very careful. Now, to keep our opponent from getting too crazy and to protect our own combo and to abuse Baral, all the stuff, we're going to play some counter spells in the deck because, you know, it's a control deck. It's got blue in it. So here's some counter spells right here. We're going to play 4 copies of Void Shatter, 3 copies of Negate, and 1 copy of Horribly Awry in the deck. Horribly Awry, I think, is pretty important. You know, counters everything except, like, Heart of Kiran right now. Like, all the way up to Felidar Guardian, this can counter. So, just an important thing to keep creatures off the board in the early game and to keep Saheeli from comboing off. Void Shatter, you know, can keep anything off the board. Creatures, planeswalkers, you know, any spell they're trying to play, artifacts, whatever. Just a catch-all counter spell is important, and it can exile Scrapheap Scrounger, which you always have to at least mention. And then Negate. Negate can counter Heart of Kiran while we're on the play, so that's cool. Can counter planeswalkers, things that are trying to, you know, break up our combo, whatever they're trying to do, you know. Negate just has a million uses right now, and it is definitely worth main decking. And it's got a cute piece of tech in the deck where, like, if for whatever reason you can't get a Hedron Alignment in the graveyard, like you can't get the thing that discards a card for you, and there's a lot of stuff in this deck that will let you put Alignment in your graveyard, but just in case you have no other viable option to do so, you can always negate your own Alignment to get one in the graveyard. I'm going to keep the slide up so I can show you the removal here in the deck. We're going to play 2 copies of Murder, 2 copies of Grasp of Darkness, and 1 copy of Complete Disregard here. You don't get to see Disregard very often, but it's a fine card. It's splashable, it's instant speed, it exiles Scrapheap Scrounger and a bunch of other stuff, including Felidar Guardian. That has power 3 or less, so that's pretty cool. You know, it doesn't hit Heart of Kiran, whatever, but it hits a lot of really important stuff. You know, Tireless Tracker all the way down too. So Toolcraft Exemplar, keep going. Like, Complete Disregard is splashable, instant speed, exile. So I'll take it because it's got a lot of uses right now. Grasp of Darkness and Murder are obviously just, you know, decent removal pieces. So we'll play those. I mean, what can I say about them that hasn't already been said, you know? Both of these can also break up Cat Combo. Both of these can kill Heart of Kiran. So the 2 biggest, ridiculous, dumb cards we're trying to do away with in the format, these can deal with. And to finish off the main deck, we'll play some Insurance. 1 copy of Sphinx of the Final Word in the deck. You know, this is the other creature that we're playing, but this blanks all their removal too. That's cool, except for, I guess, like, To the Slaughter. They can still play that and make a sacrifice or Sphinx. So, watch out. You may have to protect it with counter spells if they have To the Slaughter. But aside from that, Sphinx is a pretty great card a lot of the time, that if you have no other option, is an easy way of finishing off the game. So, I at least, you know, I don't want to just be toast, done, forgotten if we somehow screw up getting an alignment in each zone, you know, which is totally possible. We're playing against somebody. So, you know, if we somehow mess up the order of operations there, I just want to have some other way to win the game, and Sphinx is a pretty good way of doing that against control and even like aggro decks, as long as we've been able to control the game up to that point. First deck plays 25 lands because it's a control deck, you know. We're not trying to get to anything outrageous like Torrential Gearhulk or anything, you know. So I feel like 25 lands is acceptable here, and if you wanted to, you could always add the other Sunken Hollows, the other Choked Estuary. We get along on just having 2 of each here, but if you had them or you had the bucks, that'd be where you'd start. Here's the sideboard right here, Ceremonious Rejection for the usual suspects. I really have to go through the list at this point. A lot of good artifacts right now. 2 Transgress the Mind against Cat Combo. Horribly Awry can be against both aggro or cat combo, for all I care. There's another copy of Negate in there because, you know, we're blue and we don't play all 4 Negates in the main deck, so we'll go ahead and finish off the playset and the board. That's pretty standard. 2 To the Slaughter because there's a lot of planeswalkers running around right now. Flaying Tendrils is mostly for Scrapheap Scrounger, but it's just good against aggro, period. You know, we want to be able to blow up the board if we so have to, and we're kind of bad against fast aggro, so Flaying Tendrils is an incredible card. Another copy of Murder, mostly against mid-range strategies like green-black. Summary Dismissal is just another good counterspell, so we'll do that. And then Sphinx of the Final Word will just have a brother in the sideboard to sort of join him, especially in control matchups. And here are your power rankings. A final score of 55 for the deck, but that's not bad. We're only spending 35 bucks, and the deck can win some games. I mean, it's a traditional blue-black control that just like shoehorns in this weird combo win condition. That's on color at the very least, so there's that. And the combo plays pretty well to a dirtly strategy like control anyway. So there's your control deck. You know, we get to play some decent removal even though we're not like spending the money on Fatal Push or anything. Like, Murder is still decent. Sinister Concoction is a surprisingly effective removal spell, you know. We still get get good counter spells. We get stuff like Void Shatter. Negate is an often undervalued card in this format. It's really good. Same thing with Horribly Awry. Like, that is a fine counterspell right now that does an awful lot of stuff. It is sort of a little brother to Saheeli. You know, like Saheeli is the control deck that can fire off a, instant win combo whenever it wants, as long as it's got the pieces. This one is a little bit like that. You know, we're a control deck that has a 2-card combo that can just win the game out of nowhere. Which I know I get is a bit of a stretch, but it's still a 2-card combo that wins the game. I've heard that somewhere before. But while I was building the control deck, I was thinking to myself, like, one of the things that this deck has to do effectively is put cards into the graveyard. You know what's on color and puts cards in the graveyard really, really effectively? Zombies. And it also gives us another win condition, and it's also just really cool. We're playing a Hedron Alignment Secret Salvage combo deck with a win condition in Hedron Alignment that can also beat face with zombies. Like, just kind of doesn't get any cooler than that. Now, in this deck, we're obviously going to play all 4 Hedron Alignment. We've got to do that. But I'm going to cut it down to 3 Secret Salvage. We can get away with it a lot easier in this deck because we've got a whole other win condition in the form of zombies and stuff. Secret Salvage also has, like, a couple of tricks in this deck that it doesn't have in the first deck. But, I mean, 9 times out of 10, unless you're trying to be cute, you'll just go get Hedron Alignment, obviously. But if you don't have an alignment in your graveyard, but you have a couple of other cards in your graveyard, there are still some neat tricks that are available to you. Let's talk about all the zombies that we're playing in the deck, because we're playing a lot. We're actually playing 22 creatures in this deck, a lot of which have the ability to come back from the graveyard. So let me show you all those real quick. Let's start with 4 Crypt Breaker in the deck. I like having a 1-drop zombie. I just like having that for comfort food, so that's cool. But the thing about this is that it allows us to obviously drop Hedron Alignments into our graveyard or other zombies that we want to put into our graveyard. I like that we have a dual purpose in discarding cards in this deck. Add to that Crypt Breaker is a virtual card advantage, or like straight up card advantage. We've got a bunch of zombies in play, and we can do it anytime, just EOT, draw a card, tap some zombies, so in a deck that's not only trying to like get all of its zombie pieces, but also trying to get like various combo pieces to assemble the Hedron Alignment combo, just being able to like draw a bunch of cards is obviously super important. Don't have to tell you. I'm also going to play 4 copies of Haunted Dead and 4 copies of Stitchwing Scab in the deck. These are sort of famous at this point in the format for their role in various emerge decks, because they do a lot of work in those decks, and they're just as effective in this deck. We can discard other zombies that we want to get back later to these. We can also obviously discard Hedron Alignments too to help put the combo together. So having a dual function is nice. I really like Haunted Dead because he drops off that spirit when he comes into play. That's sweet. Stitchwing Scab is actually a pretty decent threat too, so both of these are just good cards in their own right that also allow us to do various funky stuff with the combo. I'm also going to play 4 Prized Amalgam in the deck, and I probably don't have to say much more than that. We're discarding a bunch of cards. This is a great card to discard, and then later when we get our Haunted Dead or our Stitchwing Scab back or whatever, then we can just get our Prized Amalgam back too. And I was telling you about cute tricks you can play with Secret Salvage earlier. If you have a Prized Amalgam in your graveyard, you can always exile it and go get 3 more Prized Amalgams and start putting those into your graveyard, which is hilarious. What's like more frustrating for the opponent than 1 Prized Amalgam in the graveyard? 3 Prized Amalgams in the graveyard. So if you want to be cheeky, you can do it. I'm going to play 2 Gissa and Giralf in the deck for obvious reasons. Like, this allows us to dump cards in our graveyard when it comes into play, which is again good for alignment and good for just zombies in general. Although at first I was like going all the way and playing 4 because I was like, oh, this is an awesome ability for this deck. But again, you got to be careful because occasionally this will put more alignments in the graveyard than you really want to. But the good news about that is in this deck, if you accidentally drop more alignments in the graveyard than you really want to, then you're not completely done. You're also playing like 22 creatures that can just win for you. So you don't have to feel as bad. But Gissa Giralf is still a very effectively costed threat that is very synergistic for the deck. Speaking of exactly those words, I'm going to play 4 copies of Elder Defiend in the deck. Yeah, he's here, she's here, I don't know. But this card is here because the Emerge strategy is just too great not to play. Both Haunted Dead and Stitchwing Scab can be sacrificed very effectively to put this into play and then come right back. Same thing with Prized Amalgam, sack it, put this into play, but just why would I play like all of those cards and not Elder Deep Fiend, because they always go together, and there's a reason for that. They're just some of the best emerge targets for it. And Elder Deep Fiend is so crazy because we can play it on our opponent's turn, shut down their attack step, or shut out them from casting permanents that turn if we do it during their upkeep. So that's awesome. We can just like EOT an Elder Deep Fiend into and then attack with it. And again, if you want to get super stupid with a Secret Salvage, you can always remove an Elder Deep Fiend from your graveyard and then go get 3 and start chaining them together, because everyone loves chaining Deep Fiends already. We might as well have a card that goes and gets 3 at a time. How stupid is that? Now, for the most flexible slots in the entire deck, I'm going to play 4 copies of Sinister Concoction and 3 copies of Glimmer of Genius. Sinister Concoction is just another way to get stuff into the graveyard. We need as many ways of doing that, and it's really cheap removal, and it's some of the only removal that we're playing in the entire deck. So, you know, I feel like it checks all the boxes in the deck. So I'll play some Sinister Concoction all day in mine, and we're going to play the 3 Glimmer of Genius, because we're going to need some sort of refill in the late game. And yeah, we've got Crypt Breaker, but that, we have to jump through some hoops. You know, we have to have 3 different zombies on the battlefield in order for that to work. So I want to have another way of refilling our hand, because we are doing a lot of discarding. And I think that Glimmer of Genius is one of the best ways of doing it, because it not only allows us to get card advantage, like straight up card advantage, that's an extra card right there, but it also allows us to scry. I think Glimmer of Genius is the right idea, although you could play a bevy of other stuff. Anticipate, pour over the pages, pieces of the puzzle. There's lots of stuff that could go in this slot. Now, this deck cuts it down to 24 lands because it's not a control deck. You know, we're not looking to like absolutely positively need our drops or we die. You know, we can survive on far fewer lands in this deck, so I feel like we can cut it by 1 land. And there's really no difference other than that 1 land that's missing. The sideboards are fairly similar too. We're going to play Ceremonious Rejection for the same reasons. We're going to play most of the Negate in the sideboard instead of in the main deck here, but we're still going to do it. Transgress, we're going to bump up by a copy because we're a little worse against Cat Combo in this iteration. 2 copies of Murder because, you know, cheap removal. We're going to play 2 Yahini's Expertise, which I think is a better card here because it doesn't exile our own zombies sometimes. That could always happen, and we really don't want it to. So Yahini's Expertise is, I think, a little better in this build. And we can just play a free zombie off of it, and who doesn't want to do that? Or a free Hedron Alignment too. There's always that ability. To the Slaughter is also in this deck against Planeswalkers, and then a Pick the Brain, because again, we're a little worse against Cat Combo, and Pick the Brain is a little more insurance against it. Here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 61. We're only spending about 15 more bucks here, and we're getting like an extra 6 points. That's because the zombie strategy is fairly solid. It's got a really, really high resiliency, which is good against all the very amazing removal that everyone's playing right now, you know. People love zombies. People love Deep Fiend. People love Hedron Alignment. So, and it turns out they all go together kind of well. Like, you would think that we're just sort of jamming in Hedron Alignment and Secret Salvage, but, you know, we're already looking to discard cards, and that's the most important thing to the Hedron Alignment combo. So as long as we're already doing that, we might as well play another win condition that can just like completely come out of nowhere. I'm tapped out. That's all I got for now. Now, a couple of things I want to talk about real quick before I end things. Now, you may be saying about these 2 decks, and if you are saying this, I don't know if you've made it to this point in the video, but you may be saying about these 2 decks, hey, Hedron Alignment's going to rotate in like a month. Why would I build this deck? You know, why would I spend money on this? Well, truth be told, Oath will not be rotating out when Amonkhet comes out. Nothing rotates when Amonkhet comes out. I've just been spreading the word on this lately because I keep seeing in comment sections that people are fairly convinced that Oath and BFZ rotate out when Amonkhet comes in. Not the case. Nothing rotates, and nothing will rotate until fall. In the fall, BFZ and Oath of the Gatewatch will rotate, as well as Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon. Oath and BFZ do not rotate, and you can play this deck for a whole other 7 months. Try these things out. Let me know how you felt about them in the comments section. What are we doing next time? Well, next time, I think I'm finally going to put out the red-white Consulate Siege, or Siege Dreadnought deck, is what we'll call it. Siege Dreadnought is basically Siege Modification, Consulate Dreadnought. We've all seen it. We've all heard about it. I'm going to finally do a deck on it, because I actually haven't done that yet, which is kind of crazy. I've had this deck sitting around finished for like 2 weeks, and I just haven't done the tech. So that's what we're doing next time. Red-White Siege Dreadnought, which is one of my favorite names for a deck in the format. But if you like this video, make sure that you thumbs up the video. That helps me an awful lot. Sub if you're new, hit that bell for notifications, and follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. I'm Dev from SBMTG. That still feels weird. to say my Twitter handle and then say I'm Dev from SBMTG. Haven't figured that out yet. But anyway, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, my wizards.